Hi, book club members. I'm Jen Bozier,
And I'm Carrie Honey.
and this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. This is episode number 25, and our book is Watchers of the Throne, The Regent's Shadow by Chris Wraight. This book is about the continuing adventures of Alea and Valerian as they chase down corruption on Terra in the wake of Guilliman's return.
Wait,
The
wait,
book,
wait, 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 wait. There's corruption on Terra.
I
This is
know,
totally new.
it's so difficult, but we're gonna come to terms with this
Hmm.
together as we discuss this book.
Okay.
Just like same shit, different day on Terra. I swear to God. We posted several questions on our website, wh40kbookclub.com, and we encourage your participation in our discussions via Twitter, the site, YouTube, or Encrypted Box channel. Spoiler warning. If you haven't yet read the book, go to the site, check out the questions, and then come back to this post as we're going to be discussing this book in great detail from start to finish. All right, let's dive in. First off, did you like the book?
Dumb question. Of course I did.
Oh my God. Did we was okay, let's ask that a different way. Was there even a possibility that you weren't gonna like this book?
Oh, I can't say that. I mean, we've read so much of Chris Wright that's been so good. There could always be a letdown, but this was not it by far.
There could always just be that unsuspecting landmine where we're like, oh, that was a thing that happened. Yeah, no, I given as much as I love these characters, I love the setting. As much as we riff on Terra and the rampant corruption, I really do like Terra as a setting. I like how much Chris Wraight is just continuing to build upon this world and flesh it out. And each book of his I read, I feel as though I better understand Terra, good and bad, good thing,
True.
bad thing. So I kind of went into this book just like, oh, I'm gonna love it, and I did. How about that?
I did.
So, what parts really stood out to you?
Oh man, so much.
All right.
Pretty much anytime Reboot was talking. All right. Um, I really loved seeing him play the diplomat. That we could really see,
Yes.
King Gulliman here coming in. He's basically you wake up at 10,000 years and being like, fuck Christ. What has happened to this place? So, by the way, we're changing all of this. All right. And we're fixing it for the better. But not just that, all the fixing, but how he was able to handle people, and even when he's talking to Alea, and he was again looking right at her,
Yep. One of the
basically
few
talked about
people.
how much he honored her and how he had no idea what happened with the Sisters of Silence because back in his day, they were so revered and so needed. And she said when he has her out on the ceremony to be honored, and she was like, I don't think he makes many mistakes, and that was a mistake to have me out there. But then she realized, oh no, he just played me that well, and I hate him for it. It's like that he does. That's what a diplomat does, and to me, this was like a really, because he always talked about, we saw in his Primarch book, as well as we saw in the Dark Imperium, what he wanted and still wants his Ultramarines to be are not only these fine warriors, but these fine diplomats and politicians as well. And this was such a great example of
Right.
him doing that. Not only that,
So,
but he set such a precedent that
right.
he's gone after what the first three chapters. So
First three
right,
chapters, yeah, because everybody gets a moment with him.
right, and then that's it. But it's like, and I know this is one of the questions that he's still there. So it just, to me, it also does, it just says, how commanding
Hmm.
his presence is.
The two things about him that really stood out to me in those first two chapters. So one is on page 13, and it's when he's like, okay, I'm going to leave. And Jack is begging him to stay. And she says, he closed his eyes and I stopped talking. For a moment, I perceived an enormous weariness in him, a mortal response to the infinite demands and hopes. I look back now and guess that every meeting he ever had ended the same way, with people pleading for more guidance, more help. And the reason that I like that so much is that later, I think it's page 29, when Alea meets him, and she's like, I don't know how regular people see Primarchs, but to me, he looks like an old man. And she talks about how he looks like a furnace, that the fires were once raging and now they're just kindling.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love that. And we're definitely going to talk more about Gulliman later. But all of the descriptions of meeting with him were so wonderful. And I love how enchanted Valerian is with him and the conversations with him. And, when he meets with him and just how he continually throughout the book keeps going back to, well, the Primarch said, like, this unmovable granite warrior, right, is just
Well,
enamored.
there was one theme throughout that, except for the Council of 12, you know, anyone who got a one-on-one with him, which, includes Valoris and, Valerian and Alea, even Alea and Jack, just being with him, it's just like, we will follow you to the ends of the earth. Just so enamored by it because he just has that charisma. And, in reading the Horus Heresy, they talk about that with the Primarchs to begin with, that they all just exuded this charisma that people would just listen and just do whatever they wanted, just in the hopes maybe they would smile their way. So they always kind of, kind of like a demigod, they always kind of had this aura about them. So in a way, it's kind of not surprising that his presence is so strongly felt because he is so charismatic, well, his aura is anyway.
Absolutely.
To the fact that it, kind of carries over into his shadow that he has left on Terra. I thought it was so brilliantly done. And of course, hats off to Chris Wraight for keeping it like that, where it never felt like it was, Reboot said. It was just this constant presence you just felt.
So before we dive more into the reboot thing, the other thing that really stuck out to me, the reason it stuck out to me is I remember reading the passage and it hit me so hard because we talk about this a lot, but hearing a character as powerful as this one say it, really, I was like, oh, that's a gut punch. It's on page 45. And it's when Jack goes to speak with Asherial and to talk to, to plead with him to get more troops, help us out. And he talks about how, let's see, for generations, the High Lords have treated the Guard as infinitely expendable. We were sacrificed in our billions for Terra. Now a general has arrived worthy of service who takes the fight to the enemy, not just hold them back. And it was one of those things where it's like, oh man, this is the most powerful military guy saying, like, look, we are done with your shit. We are done with you sacrificing us. We are done being the currency of the Imperium's war machine. And I was like, oh man, it feels a little hollow given.
Yes, very much so. I was just thinking that as you were reading that, I was like, I do remember that part, but yeah, no, I don't know how much he really believed that, or part of it anyway. No, so
I think he believed it a little bit, but part of me wonders how.
I don't think the general he was insinuating it was Gulliman, but I don't think it was Gulliman.
No. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that because that part I was like, oh man. So talking about
another part really stood out to me. It's page 57. It's with Valerian, and it's when they basically go tearing down this cathedral. Not the cathedral, but one of the cathedrals to take down these cults. And he's looking around, because everything's just destroyed, and he doesn't feel anything about it, because as he says, this place was not holy to me, and its many symbols of veneration were, at best, a misunderstanding of an old purpose. And that, to me, is huge for a custodes who does nothing but watch the throne. He knows there's a being there that is not dead, sort of, for 10,000 years. And even he's just like, we get kind of what you're thinking, but you've really misunderstood his purpose here, which is pretty much like what the Primarchs all said, what the whole, everyone who wasn't part of the imperial cult said.
Right. Well, I loved that scene too because it was so Valerian. He's so nonchalant about everything. I can't remember what page it is, but it's when he first meets the Imperial Fists. And the opening line is, his name was Torgaradon. And I'm like, oh, that's old so-and-so. Like, this is a chapter master of the Imperial Fist. And he's just like,
Oh,
so
it is?
so this is this guy's name. And, it's like, he's just so nonchalant about everything, where he's just like, okay, so then all these things happened, and then these things happened. And when he was in that place, I was like, huh. Same thing when he was talking about that. I was like, oh, yeah, just like nothing. Or sorry, he's not the chapter master. I just totally said that, didn't I?
I was like, wait,
no,
what?
He's the captain of the third company.
Okay.
He's one of the longest standing ones. Sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, just the way he says it, like, this guy's famous. The way he says it is just like, oh, that guy. But also when he's in that cathedral and he's looking at all these relics and he's just like, yeah, this is just a misunderstanding. Like,
well, I'm not sure how much, the Custodes, especially Valerian, because he was a scholar, as they point out quite often, really knows very much about the Adeptus Astartes either.
And he's also very nonchalant about them too when he describes them. And there's a little bit of looking down his nose at them. Like when he talks about the Minotaur and the Imperial Fist guy going at it, and he's like, yeah, typical Astartes aggression. Okay. Like, it's kind of like when you watch like your kids fighting, right? Where you're just like, get it out of your system, children. Again, though, it's this otherworldliness to them, I guess, and to him, which makes him seem even more aloof and removed. So, but as we mentioned, so Gulliman's presence, or lack thereof, is arguably one of the strongest themes of this book. You could almost argue that the whole book is about Gulliman, because it's so much of his changes and the reactions to them. Mm-hmm. So let's start with the first part, which is, what do you think of all the different decisions that he made along the way?
Well, I guess to me he didn't make like that many earth-shattering decisions. I mean, he just kind of came in, looked at the, to me, haha, earth-shattering. I just got that. And I am
hey!
No, but he just kind of came in and was just like, you suck, you suck, you suck. You're a bad person. You're all off the council. I'm bringing in my own people. We're moving towards this change. We're going to make things back to, how it was before y'all mucked it all up. And peace. We're done. And while it's like, yes, that is pretty huge, he just like dismissed council members at the same time. Is anyone really that surprised after how they behaved in the last book? I mean, he's not an idiot.
Well, and I think that was the thing that shocked me the most, was that it reminded me of that cartoon that I think everybody knows now, the This Is Fine dog, where these guys, as you said, like, your decisions led us here. And I think especially having come on the tails of the Hollow Mountain, where Crowl is inside the Hollow Mountain and, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine, we've got it under control, it's totally fine. That guy obviously gets killed, right? So and he doesn't have to depose them.
And Crowell's actually the one going, your tea party's on fire.
Exactly. Like, this whole thing's...
Yeah.
But how could these people not look at that? You literally had demons on Terra. Like, how did they not look at that? The fact that afterwards they were like, we've survived for 10,000 years. This is fine.
Yeah, Cadia hadn't.
Like... This is fine.
This is... I mean, can you name any other time in the last 10,000 years where Cadia blew up and...
Oh, that one time.
And the eye spread open?
They glued it back together.
No, just put it... Oh, okay.
Flex tape.
That... I don't know why I didn't think about that.
Big brain time.
Mm-hmm. Some flex tape and some Craggle.
And Good Hope. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the point you're at. These are strange times, which is funny given that we're talking about this in like the first week of quarantine for everybody during a pandemic. These are extraordinary times. And the fact that they're all sitting there like, no, we just got to keep staying the course. But one of the things in particular, so two things, actually. I want to go back to something you said earlier where you talked about how she was like, it was a mistake to have me up here. In some ways it was, because you have this group that got rid of the Sisters of Silence, they're already pissed off because Gulliman fired their head boy. He's pissed off doubly now because now not only did Gulliman fire you, he's bringing back the people that you actively want destroyed. Right? I mean, but
I think he did that on purpose. 100%.
You know what?
He was like,
how much of it is the Xanatos Gambit, right?
You know, like, I don't, because he told us, like, I don't know why your order disappeared, and I'm leaving it to you to find out, because he knows that most likely that faction is still on Terra somewhere, and she will root it out. He has all the faith in her that she will root it out, and she does.
For sure, for sure. That's why that was an interesting plan. The other thing is, in the end, when Jack realizes that she backed the wrong horse, and that both the Navy and the Astra Militarum are both in cahoots, well, the leaders are in cahoots against Gulliman, the fact that when I think it's Ashariel who says, he's like, dude, Gulliman doesn't know shit. He chose me, so how good could his judgment be? I was like, oh, okay. I can't argue that point, actually.
No, that is true. Of course, you could also argue that he knew anyway, and he knew maybe this would all come to a head, and this was how it was all going to clean out, and maybe not.
Well, again, in the end, when Ruskavler, right, she's like, yeah, now I legitimately am the head of the Administratum. There's nobody else here lurking out in the wings. Part of me did wonder how much of it was a Xanatos Gambit, either on Gulliman's side or on Valoris' side. But
I also wonder if Gulliman had a nice chat with Fadix. And Fadix might have put in a few thoughts.
Speaking of that, one of the decisions that surprised me the most is the people that he immediately gets rid of are the people who are static, the people who treat the Lex as a non-breathing document to be obeyed to the letter, especially given that the Ultramarines are renowned for treating, I mean, there's an entire trilogy, well, technically 2 trilogies, written about this concept that the Codex Astartes is not to be deferred from. It was interesting to me that when he comes on Terra, he's like, oh yeah, all of you people who think that we can't be flexible, get out. It's like, oh, that's a bold move.
Well, you know, it's like, he's like, the more like guidelines. I mean,
right.
Again, Gulliman being the ever diplomat and politician and royalty, he knows this stuff has to be flexible. It's just like, yes, here are these guidelines. These were perfect 10,000 years ago. Why haven't they been updated and changed? And
right. But similar to the Ultramarines, you can at least see how that happens, right? You get those people who are staunch. We do not diverge from this. And then their successors also, no, we are staunch. I was taught this way. So you can see how it just keeps building and building and building till eventually you get into this way, right? But again,
they're also going against the guy who wrote part of the Lex, who is saying, you guys are nuts. Like, don't take this stuff so literally.
To be fair, though, I mean, when you look at authors' reactions, J.K. Rowling is particularly egregious for this. I should say I've never read any of the Harry Potter books, but I watch people's reactions. She's particularly egregious about going back and being like, actually, this character was like this, or I should have done this, and people are like, stop it! Shut up! You don't get to edit your work after you've written it, apparently.
Now, no, but this wasn't some book of fiction either.
That's true.
This was like this
constitution.
You know what? This would be like if John Adams and George Washington and all of them came back and saw how we were treating the Constitution and just be like, y'all, like,
clearly we didn't mean this when we said this.
Right.
But you know what? You'd probably see similar reactions and resistance.
100%.
It's
except for my dad, because John Adams is like, right below God.
Yeah. So one of the things that I found really interesting about this, though, and I guess not interesting, but I guess I think of myself as cynical, and it's one of the reasons that it's Alea is my homegirl. Um, but even I, like rampant corruption, eating fine food while the half of Terra is starving. Okay, actively destroying and murdering all these people, destroying all this stuff on Terra just to prove a point so you can get your job back.
Omelets and eggs, Jen. Omelets and eggs.
Bruh, even I didn't think they were that bad. Like, I was legitimately, when I got to the end, I was like, oh, you sons of bitches. Like, this isn't even about the people. This is just about you keeping power now. Which
that's what it was in the last Watchers of the Throne book.
yes.
You know, when Tyrion went to, not Slist, but the guy with the really long H name, that I'm just like, yeah, that guy.
Hematalian.
Sure, whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
You know, and he's like, well, I gotta talk to you about your friend Reboot. And Tyrion's like, isn't he great? He's like, he has to go. I was like,
right.
What? I mean, there was already that
right
power struggle or fear of a power struggle.
Can I say something about that, by the way?
Sure.
When Jack goes to see Tyrion and she's like, who would be behind this to actively move against the Primarch? And he's like, oh, Fadix for sure. My first thought was, how about the asshole who came and told you got to get rid of Gulliman? That would have been my first name. I would have been like, yeah, Hematalian, that guy's definitely doing some squirrely shit. So I didn't know if he intentionally gave her.
I don't think he intentionally did, but he may not be, you know, just as in tune. And he's probably clouding, you know, what happened with his own agent, what Fadix did. And then Fadix is like, you brought this on yourself. It's your fault she's dead.
Mm-hmm.
I might have killed her, but it's really your fault that I had to do this. You know, like the abusive spouse.
Right.
So I can kind of see why he would say that. And he probably didn't take what Hematalian said so seriously.
Right. For sure,
yeah, he's
maybe.
like, yeah, this guy's power hungry and, you know, and all that, but he wouldn't kill all these people.
So he had my naivete and wishful thinking. I never felt like such a Pollyanna. Got to the end and was like, oh.
What?
Well, again, I didn't think that they would be that evil and bloodthirsty for it. I was.
Oh, I did.
Even I was disappointed. Okay, so I guess I have a little bit more Pollyanna and optimism in my heart than I thought I did. It's not entirely cold, dead, and black.
I mean, like, as soon as Ross Clever met with her and was like, there's someone within, I immediately was just like, you know what? I've read this before, where politicians have let these cults fester to try to get popular support. So I am with this. And thanks to my husband, always watching NCIS, my immediate thought went to Perith because she was being the most helpful. And that's what you do in NCIS. The person who's the most helpful is always behind it.
I actually was really rooting for Perith. I was actually hoping that maybe she wouldn't turn on Ashariel, because she tells you in the very beginning, oh, we've served together for so long. I was hoping that maybe she would be like, look, I'm not going to turn on my buddy, but I will help you a little bit. I was a little disappointed. When I saw her there at the end, I was like, girl, what are you doing? That bummed me out a bit. So let me ask you this. We have Gulliman and all of his decisions going on over here, right? And the other meat of the story is Alea's own research, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the long-term implications of her research? She has now shown that the Selenar used to be on Luna, and after the Emperor, he then gave it to the sisters, or that the church basically had all of these people killed and removed.
Well, it kind of doesn't surprise me that the ecclesiarchy and all these people were removed, because, like they said, they're soulless. So that's, you know, makes me wonder if they're all gingers. But they you know
She has black hair on the cover.
no, no, I knew she did. I was just trying to make a joke.
I know.
That was for Blake.
I know. He is a ginger.
Huh?
He is a ginger.
No, he's not.
He always looks like he is. He's very pale.
He's pale, but he's not redheaded. He's a blonde.
Oh, in his pictures, he always looks like he's strawberry.
Oh,
Anyways.
I can't wait to tell him that.
Blake, you're a ginger in my book.
All right, but anyway,
I've had some alcohol.
just them being soulless, because I have, and I've read, I'm sure you have too, other fantasy novels that featured a certain race of people who maybe not be soulless, but maybe couldn't see magic, and magic didn't work on them for one reason or another. And so those who practiced magic, or like even the holy people, hated them, damned them, wanted them all killed, and I kind of saw that very similar to
yes, that. I would say that's accurate.
And not only that, but they talk about this a lot, obviously, in Eisenhorn as well, that these soulless ones, the pariahs, they have this aura about them that people are disgusted and they don't even know why, so they automatically don't like a person. And I could totally see a devout, crazy ass ecclesiarch just being wanting to hold up the cross, or the sign of the equivalent, be like, be gone, demon, without fully realizing like really what their great purpose was back in the day. And it was, of course, when the emperor fell, the imperial cult was able to rise on up and take things the way how they wanted. Most likely Lorgar probably had a high disdain for the Sisters of Silence.
Well, see, I actually would have expected it to be the Inquisition, and bear with me here for a second. A lot of the Inquisition are psychers. They utilize psychers a lot. So if you remember, especially in the Heresy, the Sisters' most prominent use was whenever they were battling the Thousand Sons, right? That's who Lehman Russ brings with him to Prospero, is a whole contingent of them. They are very much anti-psyker people. So I kind of expected it to be the Inquisition, because the only blunters that they really use, because if you remember, in the Eisenhorn books, he talks about how much the other Inquisitors hated the fact that he kept blunters with him. And the only ones that the Inquisition really sanctions are the Calexis in the Officio Assassitorum. So, and those are the ones that they have control over. So I was actually totally expecting it to be Arcs. And when they revealed that it was the church, I was like, oh, that makes sense. But I didn't see that coming, actually.
I was actually very surprised that Arcs was not on the Revolution side.
Who saw that coming? The Inquisition was the trustworthy one.
They had to have another game going on there. I mean, especially with,
She's playing a longer game.
Right. Just, I don't know. And I think that the Inquisition on Terra, from what I've seen with Crowl, is maybe slightly different from some of the other Inquisitors that are out in force elsewhere.
That's just what they want you to think.
Oh, that could be it too. But I mean, just for the fact that Guilliman is, we were watching in Dark Imperium how he says he's not, but he is setting a war against the Inquisition.
Mm-hmm.
I was really surprised that Arcs was not against him. Now, at the same time, have to remember the Dark Imperium begins 100 years after he wakes up.
Yes.
And this all takes place just a few short months after he leaves Terra. So this is all early on before he went against the Inquisition to learn things. And they're like, you don't need to know that. And he's like, the hell I don't.
Right.
Like, who do you think you're talking to, man?
Yes. And yeah, there's a whole lot going on with the Inquisition, I think, especially after. And that might have been one of those things where in the beginning, Arcs was like, no, this is fine. And then 100 years goes by and they're having to send assassins out to kill entire Space Marine chapters because they mouthed off. Maybe Arcs backed the wrong horse. Oh, no, this is going to be fine. Oh, this is not fine.
Or it's possible Arx wasn't part of sending that assassin. We don't know.
That's true too. But I will say that uh, this whole thing, the fact that when the ecclesiarchy is revealed to be the people who get rid of the Sisters of Silence, all I could think about was Frater Matthew and how he's clearly an Alpha Legion plant. And I was like, man, you just cannot trust the ecclesiarchy. You just can't. Like, are you part of the ecclesiarchy? Mm-mm. You're the traitor. Just saying. That one, so that actually surprised me a little, but I don't know. Here's what I would ask. So that has major wide-reaching implications, and again, ends with a voicemail. Hey, Rob. Funny story.
So we just changed your council all over again?
Well, just the fact that those are the people getting rid of the Sisters of Silence. I imagine, given how much he already doesn't like the ecclesiarchy, I wonder if he's gotten that phone call yet.
Well, that may be part of the reason why he has a bunch with him.
That could be.
And I don't remember reading if Frater Matthew had a problem with them or not. I don't remember.
Well, he has that sister kill the one who's with the saint. I don't remember him specifically saying he had a problem with them, but so here's the question I have, is that's all interesting. Mm-hmm. Definitely ends in a phone call.
Right.
Well, there has to be a reason that they brought the Seladar back up. And I can't think of what that would be, other than the fact that, hey, isn't this an interesting thing that we brought back from some of the stuff that we've mentioned previously, or some of the stuff that's established lore? Like, here's a little Easter egg for you.
Mm-hmm. And
maybe I'm just putting too much onto it. But that was my first thought as I got to the end, and I was like, I wonder why. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that Valerian had like the best take on that, because he kept saying, he said, myths that we don't know what is history or not. And she's like, well, they said that the Emperor killed them all and took all their stuff. He's like, again, myths that we don't know if it's true or not. Because and he even saying that about his own story, know, where his story is the Emperor saved everybody from these women and did this. Like, in my opinion, it's most likely somewhere in the middle.
Right. Probably. So speaking of Valerian, the Valerian at the end of this, you guys, seriously, if the third book doesn't have them making giant soulless babies, I'm going to be very upset. I could write just like a whole tome of fan fiction that I would call 50 Shades of Gold. Because they wear lots of gold armor. Anyways, I fanned myself a lot, especially on, what page was it? I have it in my notes here. Page 85, when he talks about missing Alea. And he says, I wished for that again, even as I understand it was a different species of weakness to do so. Anyways, fangirl. That was like BioWare levels of fan service. Seriously, like, Chris Wraight has to be aware at some level that he has like female followers who read that and were like, but again, as I've said in the other articles, these are just human feelers. Everyone likes a good friendship. So, but he is a very different Valerian at the end of this book than he was, say, at the start of the first book. What do you think of this transformation that we're watching unfold?
I think we were watching a brand new Custodes. No, maybe the Custodes that we had back in the Horus Heresy. Ones that didn't just sit around and stare at a throne with a corpse in it.
Right. Watching him, not only how much he idolizes the Primarch, but how much he idolizes the Imperial Fists. As soon as he gets around the Imperial Fists, and all of a sudden he's like, these guys are doing something. These guys are taking action. And when Valoris is like, we mustn't do anything, and Tor Garadon's like, we must do something, and Valerian's like, I'm with Garadon.
See, it actually, I found it much cuter when Valerian was just like, how he talked about how yearning to fight alongside Garadon again, and he's like, oh my god, Garadon is here, it's so cool, because he feels like he can really let loose
Right.
around the Adeptus Astartes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also prove something, right? Because he's a Custodes that wants to take action. He's here to do something. And
Did you like it when
I thought
Garrodon
that,
called him a child?
yes.
I thought that was
Oh,
brilliant.
oh my God. That, well, because 100% accurate,
Oh yeah.
right? Because again, he has this, well, I've heard about humanity and I do understand that there's a universe outside of Terra. And Garrodon's like, dude, you have no idea. We've been out there, we've been fighting, y'all have been holed up in the goddamn palace. I thought that was great. And you can tell that that really hit Valerian because he mentions it later where he's like, he's right. We are children.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, he ain't wrong. It was such a neat thing to watch. And I think I joked with you that in some ways it feels like this corruption of him, but not like in the chaos way. Like he starts off as this noble scholar who these are the rules and this is what I do. And then slowly but surely, the rules are kind of dumb. And I want to go out and fight. I want to take the fight to the enemy. I want to do these things. I want to follow the Primarch. And the thing for me, especially that really hit home, was the fact that he has the laurel and how everyone's always like, the laurel.
Dude,
And he's like,
that's embarrassing.
laurel.
Take that off.
Yes, and he's like, no. Because now,
Primark
especially
gave
on
me
the
this. Maybe
especially
actually think of like Fridays. Like my mama gave me that chain.
that's right. Yes. Well, he looks like little Space Caesar on the cover. He just reminded me of like, do you remember when you were a kid and like, especially when Debbie Gibson and Tiffany were really big, and because we're that age, but when you would buy something that like a celebrity wore, and then you would feel like, oh, I look just like this person. It felt almost like celebrity worship that he had going on, especially when he with the laurel, how he's just like, that's right. This is an ultramarine laurel because the ultramarines are doing something. I love his transformation. I think it is so wonderful, and he still has that scholarly, nonchalant.
But the scholarly
part of
thing
him.
I think is so great because he knows so much history. He knows, he was the one who knew that language was Chthonian. That's huge,
Right. Well, and I just love the idea. I especially love the idea that he has friends now, and he values that friendship from Alea. And it's not just because I like this like little private romance between the two of them. The idea that he's like, there's something more important outside of the palace. This is not our whole life. And I also do kind of like the destiny thing, because remember he talks about how he's like, I was unable to go into the throne room. Maybe that was the Emperor telling me something. Like maybe the Emperor intentionally kept me out.
Hands down. Absolutely. The Emperor was just like, nope, I have other plans for you.
I think also makes me more think that he is a god. I think I'm back on the Emperor the God thing, because I was that's a good point.
I am sticking with my dogma skee ball theory, okay? He is that old man in a coma. Waiting for someone to pull the plug.
Could be, but I loved the idea that maybe the Emperor was like, you've got bigger fish to fry, son. I need you out there. And I just love his transformation, and I love all of his interactions. Right now, Valerian is probably one of my favorite characters, and that's across all of the series that we're reading.
I can see that, yeah.
I just love him. So, let's talk a little spoilers. What is the deal with the Minotaurs?
Okay, well, first of all, I had to look these motherfuckers up. Because when Valerian was just like, ugh, the Minotaurs. And then I was like, well, who are these people? And then Garrodon's reaction to the Minotaurs. And just how obnoxious the Minotaurs were about. I'm like, all right, that's it. I have to look this up. So I immediately pulled up my little lexicanum on my phone, researching it, and it's like, okay, where did they come from? Who knows? Like, okay.
They're probably chimeric.
I mean, it's like, they came in the 35th millennium. No idea what their founding chapter is. No idea who organized them. No idea where they came from. Rumors that they're tied to the council, which I think they are. I think Chris Wraight just, there's no rumors about this. They are.
Oh my God. So let's talk about that really quickly. So, not only are they the shotgun of the Administorum, which, because they are not a subtle weapon, like in a universe, I feel like that, because nothing in the 40K universe is subtle, really,
They're not a
other than
shotgun. They're the mortar rocket. All right.
probably, yes, they are straight up the rocket launcher of just, like, again, in a universe where there are very few subtle instruments, the Officio Assassitorum is probably the subtlest, right? And even then, they are definitely heavy handed. So here's my question to you. In the end, Roskavler walks up to Moloch and she has that symbol, and they talk about how he kind of looks like he's in a trance and he just kind of stands there and he leans down so that she can whisper something in his ear and he leaves. What happened?
I have a few things. So I kind of my first idea was that she was basically like, "Look, your masters are no more." Like she had,
Or rather, I'm your master now.
right. You know, your masters are no more. I am now in charge. You will stand down, type thing. But you said he looked like he fell into a trance, and I didn't remember that when
I can't
reading.
remember what line it is. I'll have to find it.
But if that's the case, then I'm wondering if there's some.
Pavlovian command?
Remember the Dark Angels, the Primaris Dark Angels battle stations?
Mm-hmm.
There might be something with that.
That was the first thought that I had as well. And I have to figure out which page it's on. But yeah, he does say he's like because remember they're all there and they're all like they're ready and they're gunning for a fight, and she bamps onto the ship and
Right.
she holds up that thing and Moloch just freezes. He doesn't strike me as the type of person who would come to heal to someone he didn't know, because they don't describe him like that at all. Oh gosh darn it, now I'm gonna have to try and find this while we're talking. But so yeah, is it one of those things where it's battle stations? I don't know. um Interesting though. And I am sure, let's see, I think it's on page 292. Let's see, she came up to Moloch looking, let's see. Moloch let her approach. He waited for her as if suddenly subject to some hex or enchantment, his mighty limbs bound by unseen forces.
Hmm.
So this guy is like ready to start a fight, and then all of a sudden freezes. I got to that scene and I was reading in bed and my poor husband was trying to sleep. It was like 2 a.m. as I was reading this, and I was just sitting there like, oh my God, what is going on? It's not easy being married to me. Anyways, that scene in particular. Let me ask you a question though, slightly more pressing.
Hmm.
How the actual fuck do they have Primaris Marines? And I know how they have them literally. They work for the Administorum. The Administorum was clearly like, okay, here's some Primaris Marines and more better weaponry and all this kind of stuff, right?
Where
They're
did
clearly
they
keeping
get
them
them?
stuck. Yes. Well, I get that too, because obviously they're the Administorum and they've got their hands in everything and they can get all this stuff. But did they just grab some random Primaris Marines and were like, oh, yeah, we'll go ahead and put the Minotaur armor on them? But remember, the Primaris are more. So, like, they talk about how all of the Primaris Marines are really exhibiting their gene seed qualities. And when he runs into the Primaris Marines, he talks about how super aggressive they are. What have you been doing, Belisarius Call?
Nothing good as usual.
So here's the thing, and again, this, I'm fully willing to admit this could be me reading way too much into stuff, but you guys, these are the thoughts that make me like really excited. What if it's that they're not a chimeric chapter? What if somebody absolutely does know who their gene father is? If you recall, when Belisarius Cawl is talking with Gulliman in the Dark Imperium books, he's talking about how, look, we have all the gene seed from the traitor Primarchs, and your dad really did intend all 20 of you. All 20 of you. What if the Minotaurs are one of the Primarchs that got axed? And somewhere along the lines, when they did the Cursed Founding, they were like, oh, there's all this gene seed sitting here. I wonder what it's for.
All this gene seed going to waste.
I'm telling you, you guys. This is the stuff that gets me really excited and happy.
Man, it'd be so crazy if Games Workshop actually did admit, or, well, they wouldn't admit because there never was
right
2nd and 11th to begin with, if they officially announced, by the way.
Right. Oh, yeah. So, okay, so working backward here on our question, you didn't know who the Minotaurs were. When I got to that and he said, he was like, oh, the Minotaurs have come to Terra. I was like, oh my God. And as soon as I said that aloud, my husband was like, did you meet the Minotaurs? And I was like, I did. So, given the history that Terra has with Space Marines in general and how much they dislike them, was it surprising to you as it was to me that the Administorum totally has their own pet Space Marines on a leash?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on who you ask about that, because obviously they were with that other guy, long name, and because even Roscalver was just like, we have Adeptus Astartes here, and all they do is make a mess and leave. Like, she's like not happy. Of course, you think she's talking about the Imperial Guard, but she's not Imperial Guard, the Imperial Fists, but she's not. She's talking about the Minotaurs. So I mean, actually, to me, it totally makes sense for the Administratum to kind of have these pets to let loose every once in a while, but then they'll bring them back to their cages when they're done. They don't like. I think they don't like the Adeptus Astartes because they can't control them. But these they can.
That's control. What I was just about to say. We don't want Adeptus Astartes here, unless we have complete control of them and they answer to us and only us, which actually makes the Minotaurs perfect. That's what this whole
book is about. Is about control and who has control.
Absolutely. 100%.
The whole time the Emperor is sitting there on the throne going, someone make me a speech to text device. Arr!
Does Breva Alphobassa have an episode about the Minotaurs?
I don't know.
If not, he should do the thing. So, speaking of that, so that was a big surprise. Were you surprised by the traitors and the non-traitors in the end?
The only one that I did not predict was Fadix.
I didn't either.
So at that point, I was just like, okay, he's just a professional asshole.
Well, I even said to my husband, after Jack goes and sees Tyrion, and he's like, oh yeah, it's Fadix. I was like, God, I hope it's not so on the nose that the Officio Assassitorum guy is trying to cause some shit, because they've already painted him as being kind of a slinky asshole. So I was going to be really disappointed if he was, in fact, part of the conspiracy. So when I saw him there at the end, actually that scene when they're talking to kind of try to negotiate a peace plan there, and Fadix is just like, this is stupid bullshit. I was a little disappointed. And then you get to the end. And how... Okay, so having just recently read Lords of Silence, how delightful is this ending in general?
Quite. Although I did have to reread a certain couple of paragraphs over and over again. Yes, when Jack said, but Darren was always a figment of my imagination. He was never there. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, are you going to pull a Dallas on me? I mean, I'm not like...
It's Bobby Ewing in a shower.
Like, I'm not cool with this. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I didn't miss anything. Just keep reading. And yeah.
So my first thought, I had the same thought actually, when I was like, what are you talking about? And then when she starts explaining, she's like, oh yeah, How would a callow asshole like Darum have risen this high? Oh, because he was a callous assassin. I do like how her chapter, by the way, starts with there saying, I was right, there were 12 of them.
You know, the 12, I was like, there we go. There's the missing 12.
Yep.
See, and here I was thinking about the missing 12 was what they sent out to take care of the celestial lions behind everybody's back. You know, that's
I thought the same thing, actually. I was like,
going.
ooh, I know what you bastards are doing, which, to be fair, given the times that all this is taking place, it is wholly possible that one of the one of the women that were cheering in this book was 100% killing the celestial lions later.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. She's a busy woman, you know, she's got all kinds of stuff to do with her time. Let's not put it past her. But that scene, the whole thing from start to finish, really from the time that Valerian goes and chases and meets up with Alea and they're fighting with the Minotaurs, and when he kind of does the math in his head, because she's like, come on now or I will leave and you will have to kill me, and he's like, why would Valorous send me in here to do this? He's not cruel. Why would he do that? Okay, we're supposed to go. Like,
right.
From that point on, I was like, oh, Valorous. I don't know why, but that's a plot device that I always love. The person who looks like they're not doing anything, but really, oh no.
There's so many pieces moving that you just don't know that they're being moved.
Exactly. But when from
that made me like Valorous. This whole time I was getting so frustrated with him.
Right? Well, me too. Because I was just like, I have in my notes, there are parts where I wrote in my notes, you son of a bitch. Actually, I wrote in all caps, Valorous is a useless asshole. I kept that in my notes after I realized, because I was like, I should capture that piece. I loved it. Oh, I loved it so much. But when Phaedix is like cowering and the Vindicare and the Calidus show up, so good. Let me ask you this, though. What did you think of Jekk's involvement and or contributions to this story?
Before we get into that, I want to back up to probably my favorite part with the whole Valerian, when he's fighting the Minotaurs at the end, at which point I was just like, yeah, go, kill them all, you know, because I hated them this whole book.
It's fair.
But when he gets excited about going up against the Primaris, he's like,
yes!
I sized him up in the beginning and I was wondering, was like, how tough would this be? And then he kills them. He's like, oh, they go down like the others.
Yes. So much yes. Actually, him in that fight in general, when he talks about how just exhilarating he feels and how this feels at home. And especially when he's fighting with Alea. I just loved it. And
I loved every time he twirled his spear to, block, ricochet. Maybe think of Deadpool, except that, he was actually ricocheting off the shots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He wasn't like, your bullets really hurt. Yes. And both of them in action. I know I made this joke last podcast, but I'm going to say it again. I would love a short story or a novella or, God forbid, a whole book just called Hunting and Killing with Alea and Valerian, but just battle scenes, because them fighting together is just warms the heart. It's so awesome. Actually, when my husband was reading this book, because he read it before we did, when he got to the end, he was going, oh, you came to the wrong fucking house. Reading it, I was like, they did come to the wrong fucking house. They did not know who they were fucking with.
Okay, so going forward now to your question about Jekk. So when I got to the end of that and she was realizing that she kind of did nothing in the grand scheme of things. Okay, so it reminded me of a certain episode of Big Bang Theory. Bear with me here.
Okay.
Because I know you hate that show. This is
Triggered.
It's when Sheldon is dating Mayim Bialik. And she has never seen Indiana Jones. Like, she's not the same type of nerd that they are.
Mm-hmm.
She watches it and he's like, so what do you think? And she goes, well, if you think about it, everything would have happened with or without him. They would have gotten that idol with or without him. They would have gotten the ark. It would have killed them. He really did nothing the whole movie. And they're all like, oh, you're right. And it ruined the movie for him. And that's kind of how I feel like Jack is. She's the Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I she served one purpose, and the purpose was to obfuscate the mystery for us. So
she was a plot device, like Indiana Jones.
Well, if you think about a magic trick, she was the curtain around the table. She was the pretty assistant in the glittery dress, drawing your attention over here while the magician's doing something over here. Part of me would be interested to know, and there's no way that you can do this now, obviously, because you know how the book ends. I would be interested if you just read Alea and Valerian's chapters, if it would play out a little different, because she was the classic misdirection of, oh, it's Phaedix, it's the assassin, I know it's him. Right? So, and because of her, because Tyrion gave her that, and he's a trusted authority, we trust Tyrion's knowledge and his instincts, and because we trust Jack's insight, yeah, she was a distraction. Which was good. On one hand, it was interesting because I got to the end and I was like, oh, you son of a bitch. But yeah, at the end I was like, oh, she really didn't do anything. And she didn't, other than some like history and some color. I would say the first half of the book, her chapters are very interesting.
I will say this about her. It kind of shows you the spinning wheels that goes on in the council and you know, the administratum as a whole.
Yes.
She's doing all this work, staying up, all, you know, losing all this sleep, blah blah blah, and for nothing.
Yes.
It's kind of,
yes, she definitely shows the futility of Terran politics. Which, okay, now I'm kind of selling myself on her retrospectively, because yeah, she shows all of that. And I also like the fact that she shows that it doesn't matter how good your spy network is, or how good your information is, or how well you think you know this, you're still fallible. And keep in mind, she's young in all the ways that matter. She is a very young lord.
and she's this is her first year being chancellor, trying to wrangle in everybody. And what a time! What a time!
It was her first rodeo.
And what a rodeo!
I mean, my God. Yeah, well, you definitely understood that Tyrion was correct to retire.
Yeah.
At the end of the last book, when he said that he retired, I was like, quitter. You had the right of it, sir.
Yeah, he was pretty much just like, yeah, you know what? I've done this for hundreds of years. I'm out.
I'm done.
Like, I don't know the game anymore, so I'm out.
Clearly. Yeah. So that was a little disappointing to me, because I was like, oh, you really didn't do anything. The only thing that I loved, and because I was getting really pissed with her, is she's sitting there. She has a bead from Valerian on her thing, and she's just like, well, there's nothing I can do. So when the Calidus was like, are you going to use that thing that I let you keep? And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I kept wondering why she wasn't doing anything either.
Right? Speaking of that, actually, one of the things that pissed me off until the end was the whole thing with Lacrimosa. So first off...
oh yeah, the unsolved mystery, that.
So first off, this is really random, but as I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, it's that one woman, the woman who was Abaddon's trusted counselor, because she's called the Weeping Lady. And Jim was like, I don't think Chris Wraight expected everyone to have taken a semester of Latin, because lacrimose means to cry.
I know what lacrimosa means, but I didn't know about the Weeping Lady. So, well,
remember they said it in the Black Legion book, because that's where he meets up with her. And you haven't read the Hansu Chronicles. So in Hansu Chronicles, he goes and he tracks that lady down, and they mention her as being the weeping woman. So anyways, that was different. But I was so goddamn angry because I was like, you had this huge plot thing, and Valerian even mentions it, and Chris Wraight forgot about it apparently. And then in the end,
We're just saving it for the next book.
I'm so sorry, Chris. In my notes, I actually, towards the end there, I was like, and where the fuck is Lacrimosa? Oh.
Right, I gotta pull my phone because I'm meaning to ask
book.
you about the certain text that you sent. Even after I finished it, I was just like, what is she mad about?
Huh?
Oh,
that's what it. Oh, maybe that might have been what it was. Because I was like, where is this lady? Especially if it's going to be that woman. I can't think of her name right now. It's something. It's something as subtle as most Games Workshop stuff is, like Morgana.
I swear to fuck all, if spoiler turns out to be spoiler, I will shit. I'm hoping it's just a bad choice of name. How many fucking people can have the same fucking title in this wide-ass universe?
It was late and I'd been drinking.
I can tell. But
That was Lacrimosa. If it was going to be that, I can't think of her name right now. But it's something really blatant like Morgana. But if it was going to be her again, I was like, how many like places can this woman have her fingers in? Especially since the Hanso Chronicles kind of establishes that she's a little remote right now. She's a little busy. Busy doing nothing and being banished. So anyways, that's why I was like, how many people can be called the Weeping Woman? And Lacrimosa, I guess. Okay, anyways.
Well, we know that Kane's on Terra right now.
Yes.
Maybe he brought her.
Oh, he hated her. And she gets banished from Abaddon. Abaddon gets rid of her after she can't give him the answers that he wants. Anyways, like, not my Abaddon. I was so happy at the end. So here's the question that I've been leading up to because I'm getting a little distracted because I've been drinking. Where do Elaine, because we only drink when we read Chris Wraight books. Where do Elaine...
Not only that, but we're having some quarantinis.
Hey! I suddenly wish I had a quarantini. I just have whiskey. So where do Alea and Valerian go from here? Well, Valerian goes a hunting Lacrimosa.
Yeah, and Alea goes back to reestablishing. Well, she said that now she has her purpose. She's basically going to be creating a whole bunch of vigilantes.
Really pissed off, soulless vigilantes. I love it. Yes, that's her deal. She and Valerian are clearly going to see each other again because he gave her a dagger which he can track her through, which means they're engaged now. When he gave her that dagger, I was like, oh, they're going steady. And when it turned out that he could track her with it, I was like, oh, they're engaged.
If he could track her with, that's a stalker.
Carrie, don't fucking take this from me. It's not stalking when you want to be stalked. When she's like, I'm going to keep this. I was like, oh, they are engaged. God. And why we can't have nice things, you guys. I am legit why we can't. Yes. So obviously they're going to cross paths again. But does a Valerian cross paths again with Gulliman? Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
What does Valoris's last line mean when he tells, you may tell him in that case, all is well on Terra, he said. You may tell him that all unfolds according to his designs.
There you go.
Thanatos Gambit.
He knew. He knew, dummy.
He knew. He was like, you know what? These people are problems. Oh, man.
Well, and there was a whole thing when Gulliman got there. He and Valoris are like besties now. They spent a lot of time together. Valoris,
yes, they did.
Valoris took him down to see his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he probably came out and might needed a hug after that.
Like, it's been, like, it was a really tough conversation. And why can't I not think of the Custodes who's running around with him in the Dark Millennium? Like, yes, thank you. That guy, How has that guy not gotten on board yet?
Oh,
Everybody else is like totally Team Gulliman.
You know, after the end of the Plague War,
yeah.
he is on board.
You might be safe from the Primarch, but not from me. Loved it. So good.
And I loved Colquhoun the whole time because he was so snarky. It was adorable.
Well, especially when you compare, now reading these books, when you compare him to Valerian.
Right.
He should have chosen Valerian. I'm just saying.
I think Valerian's is in the best spot. He needed someone snarky like Colquhoun so he could convert him. He didn't need to convert Valerian. Dude, you know you're on camera, right?
I do.
You just went off camera.
My cat has been freaking out for like 20 minutes, and I've been texting people in my house like, please come let the cat out. Please come let the cat out. And nobody has. So, how to let the... To be fair, I told her to choose in or out on the way out, but if anybody here owns a cat. Anyways, now she's clawing to get back in.
Of course.
Cats, everyone, cats. So Valerian goes and he hunts down Lacrimosa. Alea needs to like hook up with him again though, because it sounds like maybe, you know, that I'm just saying that you can always use a Sister of Silence to whom you're engaged.
Like, you could always use a Sister of Silence, especially if you're going after, I don't know, the Weeping Woman. Probably he's a little warp touched, you know, just a thought.
Slightly. Just saying, slightly. Yes.
So I wonder what would happen if Alea tried to go see the Emperor.
You know what? There's actually a few people. Actually, you know, so when she talks about landing on Terra and she's like, this place is a shithole. Like, everything's just crunched and destroyed and this place sucks. And then she talks about meeting Gulliman and she's like, yeah, he just looks like an old man. I would love to know how the sisters see Mortarion. I will, like the demon princes, I would love to know how they see them. And yes, I do wonder how they would see the Emperor.
Because they could easily get in. Because none of his, you know, warp barriers are going to work on them.
Right. Well, and he valued the Sisters of Silence as well.
Well, yeah, he was the chief guy anti-warp fuckery. That's why he built the webway.
Pretty much.
Magnus.
Who did everything wrong. Anyways.
Next time your husband has the argument about Eisenhorn meaning well, tell him so did Magnus.
It's true. Because Eisenhorn is also a heretic traitor.
And Magnus did mean well.
Just so people know, that is legitimately like an argument that we have at least once a month. Somehow something that we're reading will tie back to Eisenhorn, in which of course I will refer to him as a heretic, and I will then be explained to that he is not a heretic. And I have to laugh and say, you were wrong, sir. So, yes, Eisenhorn did nothing wrong, just like Magnus. It's really hard. I don't really have a leg to stand on, though, when my favorite Primarchs are Conrad, Kurz, and Perturbo. So, but then again, as I always say, I know heresy. Those motherfuckers are heretics. So I guess literally we know that obviously their roads take them to a third book, and I'm so excited.
Oh, there better be a third book, motherfucker.
I was actually a little bummed when I got to the end of this book because I was like, dude, it's going to be at least 2 years before we get a third one.
That's true.
That's it. The good news is that all of these guys seem to be just cranking them out.
Maybe we'll get a second Lords of Silence book in the meantime.
Full body chills.
All right, that's enough.
So speaking of trilogies, though, given that we are stuck in our homes,
the Black Library is closed.
Adepticon got canceled, which we should be there right now.
Yeah.
And the Black Library's closed for a while, so we're going to use this time to get caught up on some of the books that we should have read a while ago, including Josh Reynolds' fabulous Bill series, starting with Primogenitor. Yeah, I got nothing to say other than I really hate Fabulous Bill, and I really don't like the Emperor's Children, so I have issued quite the large challenge to Josh
I don't think
Reynolds.
anybody likes the Emperor's Children. Oh, that's not true. I do know some people who like the Emperor's Children, but I don't know anybody who likes him in particular.
Well, you know what? We had a couple of our listeners, hi, who said that by the end of the book, we're going to like Fabulous Bill.
Yeah, and I
So,
saw some of their points on that. One of their points was that, no matter what he did, he didn't do anything himself. It was all experimentation. Like
oh, right.
he never committed to Slanesh. He's never, done these various things. He's never altered himself. But if he had willing participants, more the merrier, right?
Well,
So
I think that's an Angel Exterminatus when this is when Fulgrim is really trying to ascend to demonhood and all the Emperor's children are off doing their things. Fabulous Bill has all these chapters in which he's torturing these, I think it's a Raven Guard of, there's Raven Guard there, maybe a White Scar, some of the people from Istvan. And
just for funsies.
yeah, well, not really. He's experimenting, and they say something about like all the demarine and warp fuckery, and he's just like, "Yeah, my brothers can go and waste their time over there. I'm doing what matters." So I'm a little excited about it, I have to admit. So we're going to read this one, and then following that, we'll read the second book, and then when the third book comes out this year, we're going to be ready when the Black Library opens again.
We will be on it.
We will be on it. I actually really sincerely hope that the Black Library doesn't just then be like, oh, here were the 4 books that we were going to release. So then we're like, oh God, we have all this stuff to catch up on. So us diving into Fabulous Bill.
Yeah, I
Mostly
haven't.
because Josh Reynolds.
Yes, it is Josh Reynolds. And like I was talking to you, and I said, the only time I was ever like really entertained by Fabulous Bill was when I was reading the Fulgrim Primarch
Yes.
novel, and and Fulgrim just kept like poking and poking and poking, needling him, and then I was like, wait, who wrote that book? Went back upstairs and looked, and it was Josh Reynolds. Of course,
Right. So look, if anybody can make him likable, it's going to be Josh Reynolds, I guess is what I'm saying here. So
I guess what you're really saying is that you want to read Lucas the Trickster after this.
get the fuck.
Well, Josh Reynolds wrote it.
Done.
Well,
No.
we went for 25 episodes. It was a good run. Thanks, everybody.
Good one, everybody. We're out. I can't work with this woman anymore.
I mentioned Lucas the Trickster, and she's done.
If anybody wants to join as my co-host for this podcast, please send your resume.
Excuse me. I'm the one hosting this. You can send me your resume.
Okay, so we're going to stay together then. We're engaged, even though I didn't give you a knife. Anyways, do you want to take us out, Carrie?
I don't even know where to go with that, but I will.
I showed you my knife. Respond.
Phrasing. Anyway, I can't even do the closing. But you've listened to the Warhammer 40k Book Club episode regarding Watchers of the Throne, The Regent's Shadow by Chris Wraight. Please join us for our next book, the first Fabulous Bill book by Josh Reynolds. And I really do need to stop saying Fabulous Bill because I keep Googling Fabulous Bill instead of Fabius Bile.
Fabius Bile, primogenitor.
We are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and the podcast on our website, wh40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those things to the vidcast on YouTube or the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Our site also has articles about our adventures in reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside of the book club books. So please stay a while and read from a crowd. Good night, everybody.
Good night.